I get caught up a lot on how to intro these reviews, like I don't want to be generic and just be like, oh, directed by this person. So I should probably take some notes from Polytechnique, because that is a movie that knows how to do an introduction. Polytechnique is the first film by probably my favourite working director, Denis Villeneuve, or at least it's the first one that I can get my hands on. And I cannot overstate how absolutely riveted and moved I was by this film. It tackles some really serious and very deep themes, and it tackles them in a very unique way through both the writing and the visuals. The central plot of Polytechnique focuses on a university shooting in Montreal, Quebec, and the way that the film balances screen time between characters is what makes it so outstanding. Polytechnique not only managed to make me empathize with the victims of the shooting and those at the university, but with the shooter. I didn't necessarily agree with his motivations, but the film spends enough time on him as a person and as a character to make him seem like more than just a crazed maniac. He seemed to be a real person with his own issues, and he might be incredibly flawed, but rather than outright abhorring him, I felt sorry for him. And it's hard to discuss the impact of the plot without spoiling the motivations of the killer, which I think are integral to the experience of Polytechnique. But the way the film balances screen time between Valerie and JF, who are students at the university, and the killer is executed incredibly well, and it made for one of the most moving second halves of a movie that I have ever seen. It also makes Polytechnique the second movie to make me cry. I straight up bawled, not just out of sadness, but out of a mix of relief, happiness, and, of course, sadness. And I think that the structure and pacing of this film are integral to the extent to which I sympathize with the characters, and felt so happy and relieved for them. The film also uses its structure to set up the tension for the massacre itself. The film derives a lot of its tension from expectation, and it uses the reoccurrence of familiar scenes to set up this expectation very well. Given that Polytechnique is in French, and the same goes for most foreign language films, it's hard to judge the performances of actors, because you have to spend time reading what the actors say as opposed to watching their body language as they speak. So from what I can tell, the performances of all actors were incredibly well done and very down to earth. The delivery of the lines and the wide range of emotions that the actors express is really brilliant. And while it's difficult to use vocabulary as an indication of character, line delivery is something that doesn't ever go unnoticed, and I think that even without subtitles, the emotion of most lines would have come across perfectly, which is a testament to the performances in Polytechnique. Moreover, the behaviors and interactions of students at the school is pretty much realistic. And this is something that I felt throughout Polytechnique. The whole film just felt alive and down to earth, and it could be in part due to the style that this film adopts. Although very obviously stylized at some points, the film adopts an almost documentary-like style. It seems to switch between documentary and movie between shots in some scenes. It uses a combination of film noir-esque cinematography and the documentary handheld shots to imbue the visuals with a huge range of emotions. The film is relatable and lifelike while simultaneously incredibly tense. And it's all down to how well the film switches between the two styles. It explores the more lifelike documentary style in large groups of people within the university. The opening scenes of Polytechnique made me feel like much more of an onlooker to the university before the more intense events of the film started. It gives the audience a presence within the university through this aspect of the film. The more film noir-esque cinematography explores the individual characters and their feelings at certain times. With a mixture of close-ups and dramatic lighting, the film was able to associate a variety of feelings with different characters. For example, the killer has much shakier and more close-up cinematography in the time before the massacre. These scenes felt very wound up and tight, which is in the end what I felt the killer was feeling at the time as well. It all aided in how relatable his character was because the film didn't portray him as being stone cold and completely insane. He was portrayed as very human and nervous, and all of it showed in the cinematography. The transitions between the two styles were very well handled as well. Each style is only able to achieve what it wants by virtue of it being used only in the appropriate circumstances. The other thing I find very commendable about the editing is its ability to make violence impactful without ever really showing it in any great detail. It's another example of expectation and how the film plays on it. As the audience, we know what happens when someone gets shot, but very rarely does Polytechnique explicitly show any actual shooting. Instead, it prefers to allow the audience to fill in the details for themselves, and again, this is part of that expectation that the film sets up. In reference to the transition between styles, the sound editing in Polytechnique, especially in the massacre scenes, is expertly done. The film's way of transitioning scenes with audio and then visual, or vice versa, gives a great sense of association between various aspects of the plot. Polytechnique also achieves a wide range of emotion in the score of the film. The music of the opening scenes is very well layered, with a sense of remorse and simultaneous darkness, and the score retains this layered approach to the music throughout the film. On a final, completely unrelated note, Polytechnique would have been a very different film in colour, and I don't know why. There was something just so great about how the black and white worked with the tone of this film, and it just couldn't have worked in colour. It's difficult for me to put into words how I feel about this film. I find it to be absolutely brilliant, riveting, and definitely one of my favourite films. It's just so well handled and produced from every aspect possible that I find it difficult to exactly describe how it happens. Polytechnique.
10 out of 10.